A lot of people think there's nothing fascinating about email unless you have some huge list. You can do a lot of amazing things with a few hundred people on your list.
The email whisperer, the wizard of deliverability, Krystin Ruschman.
Email deliverability is basically a game. And if you know the players, the rules, and how score is kept, then you have a shot at winning this game.
Most people think that the technical piece is it.
Tech gets you there initially, but if you want to stay there consistently, you have to work on the behaviors.
And you figured that out.
Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. We as marketers have to figure out how do we talk to people right where they're at. You have to get the right message to the right person at the right time, at the right phase of awareness, and under the right conditions.
How significant can email change someone's life in business?
We have a client that made over $130,000, and they usually make $3,500.
What's next for you?
Focus on our software and make it better than what it is now.
Number one email tip.
You're not talking to a list, you're talking to a person.
Guys, if you want to understand email deliverability and email marketing, is that what you do?
Email deliverability and strategy.
And strategy.
It's all about strategery.
Strategery. Guys, if you want to understand on a very serious level, I mean, at a very high level, email marketing, email strategery, email deliverability, and understanding email to inbox, you are in for a treat here today. Krystin Ruschman, thank you so much for coming out. It's going to be fun.
Well, thanks for having me. I remember when you said something about, hey, sometime you should come out and do a live podcast with me in my new studio. And I'm like, come out to Denver. When am I coming out to Denver? I'll let you know when I'm out to Denver.
And here we are.
Here we are.
What are you doing out here?
A couple of different events. Just got back from Cancun actually night before last. And the next event starts in a couple of days. So
great. Yeah, you speak at a lot of events. Okay, I'm trying to get better at opening hooks. Okay, I'm trying to get better at like really hooking people in because like I feel like I sit down with my guests and then I go through the episode and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But like, you know, people don't really know. I feel like you are this behind the scenes almost person, like kind of invisible to the front facing world in a lot of ways. But like email wizard almost, right? Of that.
That's a new one. Okay.
Email
wizard.
What do people call you?
Write that down. A lot of things, Josh.
Okay, but like, what are some of the things?
Somebody called me an email whisperer one time. I went straight out and grabbed the domain. I'm like, I think I can use that for something. I'm not sure what. Yeah.
All right. Well, email whisperer, email wizard. But like in all reality, like you have done some, I mean, you have some crazy numbers behind you. You have some, like you have worked with, I mean, I don't know if you can share all of the names or, you know, exactly, but I know you've worked with some very large lists. And I'm not talking like, 20 or 50,000, but like hundreds of thousands, right? Millions of, of size email lists and generate.
And hundreds.
Hundreds?
And hundreds.
Like hundreds of millions or just hundreds?
No, I mean like hundreds.
Starting with hundreds.
I want to say that out loud because a lot of people think that like there's nothing fascinating about email unless you have some huge list. But the reality is you can do a lot of amazing things with a few hundred people on your list.
Few hundreds. Okay. Yeah, but like, well, I think that is important for people to know. Also, there are a lot of people that teach email. There's a lot of people that, you're going to do this or whatever. Like, I feel like credibility in today's market, because trust is at an all-time low, is very, very important, right? And when I first met you, it was like very quickly, like I knew you were talking about because I think you helped me with like domain something or whatever, right? It was like, I was
probably something technical.
Right. I was like, I'm in a crisis or whatever. And then you're like, okay, yeah, but that's only like 20% of it or 30% of it. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And you're like, no, Josh, it really is. And then I like looked at you and like figured out who you were. And I'm like, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. Right.
I'm a nerd.
You're a nerd, right? So like, give me some stats. Give me like, I want you to go out of your comfort zone for a second. And I want you to give me like brag on yourself. I want you to give me stats that would make you feel uncomfortable and everybody be like, whoa, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, when you're thinking about email, a lot of people, they equate things to open rates, right? And a lot of people will poo-poo open rates. But I like to look at open rates as a stat that we should be paying attention to because it is really the first indicator as to whether something is even getting in front of people or not. Mm-hmm. And so we can talk more about open rates and the myths and ebbs and flows of those. But the average open rate across all industries is somewhere around 16 to 30%.
16%.
16 to 30%. And it's creeped up a little bit, with some changes that have happened in the email scape. But we like to shoot for 40s, 50s, and 60s just as an average for our clients. And we have many clients that are hitting 70s and 80s. And I'm not talking about I sent 22 emails and, a couple people open them and look at me. I'm at this really high open rate. we're shooting for that all the time. So for me personally, I just don't like to see it less than about 55. If I have open rates that are less than 55, then I'm a very competitive person and I'm going to look at it and go, what the stink is happening here? Why isn't this working? So yeah.
Okay. I want to make this episode, I don't know if tactical is the right word, but kind of tactical. Like I kind of want to nerd out with you because I know you love nerding out about this and you could talk about email for hours. When I first heard you say that, I was like, LOL, right? There's no way that that's a thing, right? At least not at scale, right? And then it's like, you're like, oh no, you'd open up an account and you'd be like, here's this one. We just sent this one out to like 80,000 people. And it's like, here's a 57% open rate, or this one's a 62% open rate. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you are a wizard, right? Like that's where this comes from. But I want to know like, give me some numbers for a second. Like how much revenue do you think, like a total, not that maybe that you generated personally, like from it, but like that you're like the companies that you're working with, give us some context for the size of revenue numbers that you're dealing with here. And then the size of lists and like, how many emails total do you think of lists that you've helped, with?
I mean, I have one client that I run 8 brands for right now. And we send over 1 million emails a month off of at least each of those brands. Some of those brands are sending millions of emails a month. So that gives you some context there.
That's one client.
That's one client that we're doing that with. I have another client that they had about 16,000 people on their list when we first started working with them. They were bringing in, they were spending about $100,000 a month on advertising. And they had maybe 4 weeks of nurture that happened after someone came in as a new lead. And so basically at the end of the month, when your 100,000 is gone, so's your lead, right? Because they weren't really nurturing past about a month. So everything was kind of falling off the face of the earth. And when we started working with them, one of the first things I did, because we want a quick win.
Yep.
We don't want to just, drag on, right? Yep. So the first thing I did is I took the few drips that they had, the few emails that they had within their drips, and I just ran them through some software that we have. And I basically graded their copy, their subject line and their copy. And I just made subtle tweaks to that without rewriting everything. I didn't want to wipe it all off the table and start all over with fresh copy. I just want to take what they had and work with it. And most of those emails were getting about 35 to 38% open rates. And we moved them up into the high 50s just by modifying the copy. And so, I mean, those are little things, but they mean big things on the other end when you're talking about dollar signs.
Yes.
And so fast forward about 8 months into that, it took me 4 months to convince them that I wanted to run a particular campaign. And then finally they said, okay, let's do it. And I had maybe, let's see, how many people did I send it to? I want to say I sent it to about 3,200 people. I'd have to go back and look. But we made over $1 million off of it in the month, in the month. And so, they were making maybe $300,000-$400,000 a month prior to that on average. And so when you go jump to $1 million, basically what happened was I stopped sending after, I want to say 12 or 13 days, because we had put a deadline on the offer and I didn't want to bump up against, calendars getting full and stuff like that. And I stopped sending. But when I was telling them what was happening, like, hey, we need to really look at what we're going to do at the end of this campaign, they were saying, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Keep going, keep sending. It's like they were just all over it, And I quietly just shut it down. And I didn't say anything because their calendars were like a brick wall at that point. The salespeople had no additional time. Yeah. And it's not fair to the people on the other side of that email, right?
Yep.
And so, but we still crested over $1 million on that one. So that was just a really fun, it's fun to come in and help somebody do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to frame you up here for a second to kind of, because there's a couple things that I want to talk to you about, but also like for my own selfish reason. But I also think that I think I'm at a point where a lot of people can relate to when it comes to email and stuff, or at least roughly in that category. But there's a couple things about you that I think won me over and that I think win a lot of people over. Is number one, and this is going to kind of sound kind of funny, which is, you're good when you do none of, like, you don't do any of your own marketing, and you're just like the person that kind of, and like you're just booked out busy type of deal, right? And it's like you're someone that like you're always busy and you're always dealing with stuff, but like everybody I talk to that goes, you're like, oh my gosh, Krystin, oh my gosh, Krystin. And it's like, I'm like, okay, but like me as a marketer, right? Or me as a self, I'm like, okay, but like, what's your sales process? What's this? Whatever. Right? You're just like, what? And I'm like, how are you?
At sales. Come on.
Right. You're just like, they just come and they just like hand me money. And I'm like, yeah, it's like Brad's the same way. Right. I'm just like, hey, how did you, what? He's just like, I don't know, dude. I like, people just keep throwing money at me. And I'm like, weird problem to have. Right. But like, I think that first off, I think that shows that you actually know what you're talking about in some capacity. Right. Because particularly in today's market, I think that is not a problem that most people can relate to. Right.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think that, and going a little bit more on the technical side of things, what you just said there about the wins, I think that you actually understand marketing, right? And even though like you don't need it in your business right now, and you understand that like you understand that people need quick wins. You understand that we have to look at data and we have to see what's winning or whatnot. You understand that, and Dan Henry, right? Like pretty well, and I'm pretty good friends with him too. And I remember I paid him $100,000 last, what was it, August? I think you were there around that time. And I fly down to his house in Costa Rica, and I was asking him about offers, right? And he's like, dude, you have to understand something. He's like, if you're in the money space, which we are, right? It's like, people don't care about anything. They don't care about whatever they tell you that they care about. They do not care about it. They only care about one thing. Like, am I going to make money, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, as soon as you make them the money that they paid you, you're in, right? And it's like, you get that concept, if that makes sense, right? It's like if someone pays you, because like, I mean, you have accessible offers, right? You have stuff, but you also have a price tag on this side of it too, right? Mm-hmm. If someone's going to come work with you, but you're one of those people that, I like to tell my clients and students, I'm like, you have to see yourself as somebody that if somebody gives you money, like you just know that you're going to make them more money than what they paid you.
That is the goal. Always,
right? And like you've always delivered on that for everything that I've worked with you and everyone that I know that I've worked with you. And so I think, number one, the fact that you have demand for your services. Number two, the fact that you understand marketing. And then number three, the fact that you have this very rare, at least seeming very rare skill set of you understand marketing and you're a nerd that understands the data, right? And that's not an insult to you. I know that, right? You embrace that, right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
It's okay.
So I think my question for you is how did that come about? Like, how do you understand those things and how did you get to that point?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah. How did I get to this point? Because, my background is nursing.
Nursing, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So like I've been a nurse for over 24 years and I did clinical IT project management for 12 and a half years. And that's nerdy stuff for sure, but it's not email. It's not marketing. You know what I mean? I remember when I moved from working the floor to going into consulting, and I would go around to different healthcare organizations and I would help them roll out their electronic medical record systems back when that was a brand new thing and not easy to win people over on. Right. And I remember my very first consulting gig, I was in it maybe 3 weeks and I got pulled into an office of a mucky muck, right? Higher up. And they said, Krystin, if you want to survive in this world, you have to understand that although your title is consultant, they don't want or need your opinion.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, whoa. So,
oh my gosh.
So now that was some of the best advice I've gotten. And that is what brought me into a place where I understood now how to talk to people in a way that can move them to making a good decision that I know is going to bring them a good outcome without it being me telling them what to do, right? Like I had to get really creative to get on these consulting gigs where I could go into a C-suite room, and I could talk to all these people who, had degrees and all the stuff. Like I'm a nurse, right?
Yeah.
And they would say, well, Krystin, what do you think we should do? How do you think we should do this? That's a trap. Right? That's a trap. And so I learned, well, you can't just tell them the answer to that. Although I do believe I know what they should do to get the outcome they're after, but I need to find a way to make it like it was their decision, So in 12 and a half years of consulting, I learned how to have those conversations with people and move them to a place where they could make an informed decision. And then it's their idea, which means it's also their result. Right? Because I'm a consultant. I walk away after a year, 2 years. Who's going to get the blame when something doesn't go well, right? I don't want the finger pointed at me. I want them to have a really good experience and I want them to own whatever the outcome is. So I learned a lot of sales and marketing in those days.
Yeah, it's like you became a marketer in that of like, that's like, I don't know if that's marketing.
It's just like psychology for sure,
Yeah. so how to like catch us up to speed from nursing to email, right? Because I'm sure we'll dive into the backstory and a lot of the questions that we kind of go into here. But I think that like, if I have one goal kind of for this episode, it's there's going to be some people that nerd out on this, and there's going to be some people that like, they're going to be like, okay, I want to actually understand email, right? Like I want to understand, like I want to understand strategy, like, you know, like you said behind this but like, I think that one of the things that I have learned, which is you talk about psychology, so annoying and so wonderful all at the same time, is that people buy people. And like, when I say people buy people, I mean, that's all they buy. Right. And it's like, I have literally watched people make million or multi-million dollar decisions like within 2 minutes of meeting someone, or within before they had any idea of what the person was offering, just because they're like, yes, you, right? And so I think the lens, right? When I look at someone, I go, okay, cool. Like I will never buy serious advice from somebody that does not have at least some form of religious context, right? Like coaching advice. I don't care if you have my religion, right? But I'm like, for me, I'm like, that's my world. Like religion is a thing, right? And I'm like, you can't have a worldview without it, right? You know what I'm saying? So if you're giving me advice on how to live life and you don't have any context of religion, I'm like, there's fundamental odds here, right?
Yeah.
And so for you, like, I think that I want people to understand your lens. I want people to understand your background on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yes.
Well, so I want to understand email. That caught my ear when you said that. I mean, email is just a form of talking to people. It's a conversation. It's not a conversation where you're eye to eye, face to face, real time kind of stuff, but it's still a conversation. And so I think, back in my nursing days when I was on the floor, this was my very first nursing job. I remember being on the floor and one of the doctors called all the nurses to the nurses station. And it was kind of a quiet moment in the area. And he said, let's try something. He's like, you know how when you're talking about a patient that's in a room, you say the lady in room 13, right? He said, why don't we call her Mrs. Smith? And that was very impactful to me because I'm like, yeah, these are real people. They have family members and friends walking the hallways. Mrs. Smith is a real person. She's in this room. She's going through something that's probably not fun, right? And so when I moved into marketing and eventually into the email space, I started thinking about this. Like we all have lists. I have a list. It's 10,000 people. It's 100,000 people. It's 1 million people. I have a list. Well, yeah, but there's 10,000 real people on the other side of that. Yeah. There's a single person on the other side of every email that you're writing. And so when you start to think about it in that context, you realize that you really are having a one-on-one conversation with somebody. And we tend to not write like that. Like when you write an email, you tend to write, I'm correcting emails every day where somebody is sending me the copy that they want to push out. And it says, it's in plural, like the initial, like, hey, so-and-so enthusiasts.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, no, you're actually talking to one person. So just take the S off, like at least start with that. We're talking to one person. So
there's a lot of people that do email and I think conceptually understand that. Right. But like, I think that's very difficult to do and also nerd out on the data piece. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, how do you approach it from that perspective? Like, how did you go from nurse to email? I think that maybe that's the story, right? Like, how did you go from nurse to getting into the email thing? Because I think I know for me, you actually were out in Denver. Yeah. We're out at the JV event, right?
Last time we were out here together, I got in a car accident.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh. That's so crazy.
The whole way here, my husband's driving and I'm like, oh gosh.
Oh, Denver, be better to Krystin. We need her. But I think like once I kind of understood kind of your story into it, I'm like, okay, this starts to make sense because I think there's certain people that got into what they do, particularly in business, because they were like, they needed to. And then there's certain people that were like, that sounds like fun. Or there were certain people that are like, I just want to make money. Or like everyone kind of has a different thing. And you got into it because you were kind of thrown into it, right?
It was not my choice.
Okay, yeah. But I think that's why it works though, right?
Yeah.
Like, because like, I think with your, like the data background and the nursing background, like it was like, does it work or not type of deal, right? Where it was like someone else might be like, how do I push a button and make money? Yeah. You're just like, huh. So can you tell a little bit about that story?
Yeah. I was doing medical marketing, basically. I mean, I'm a nurse, right? So that makes sense. We were working with practitioners who needed to get their offers out and so forth. And they all have email lists, pretty much. And those email lists are things that a lot of marketers, from my experience anyway, from my viewpoint, a lot of marketers shy away from the email lists, or they're not really sure how to wield them, or they do their best to wield them and things just don't, email's dead, right? Like it doesn't flesh out into anything. So most of the time those practitioners were approached by a marketer, it was in the context of, I'll run ads for you, right? Let me bring you some new leads. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, why are we bringing in all these new leads? We have a whole bunch of people who've already said, I want what you have. Like, I'm interested in what you offer. And we're not talking to them, right? And it's so much less expensive to just work with what you already have. Yeah. So I just decided that I was going to start working with what they already had. I didn't, and part of that, honestly, Josh, is that Facebook ads was not my thing. Like, I'm not good at it. Yeah. Right. So I had to find a way to like make an impact without pushing myself into a place that I'm going to be an idiot, So let's not go there. So I was like, yeah, give me the list. Let's work on this. And there were challenges, a lot of challenges, mostly technical challenges in the beginning, because I didn't understand all the DNS records that, played into this. I didn't understand anything about, domain reputation or strategy. I didn't understand IPs and how they played into the whole thing. And there's different tools that you can use for email and all the different ways you have to set them up or not set them up to be successful. And it was just kind of like this constant discovery. And even I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, this is so hard. I just don't even know if I have it to figure out. And I just kept asking questions and trying things. And eventually what happened was it started to work.
But it's literally a different language.
The conversation isn't
the
as
technical
much,
side of things.
but the technical side is a different language.
I don't even, I know what to do now on certain things because I've done it enough times with you and I've annoyed you enough times. I'm like, oh my gosh, Krystin, help me, right?
He's boxing me again.
Right. I'm just like, oh, please. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. But you get in there and it's just like these big, long strings of numbers and code and data. It's like this key here and this has got to talk to this and this whatever. I'm like, I
think it's so interesting that that's how you view it.
To me, I'm just I'm a words person, right? I'm not a numbers person, right? It's like Brad, the communication, how you talk with Brad, his love language is numbers, spreadsheets, right? It's like in the sheets. And I'm like, I am words. I'm like, because words are fluent, right? Like I can mold them. It's just a number, right? And it's like it either matches or it doesn't. It's like one key is off and the whole thing breaks. I'm like, right?
You and I have had many conversations where I have tried to talk a little bit technical and you're like, but wait, and you're trying to reframe the question to get me to answer it in a non-technical way. It's so funny
because I'm I have to understand it first, right? And it's like, I trust you and believe it, what you're talking about, but I'm like, I don't want to bug you for the rest of my life, right? I have to understand it. But I think that's how a lot of people feel about this, right? Yeah. I think I don't want to get away from the story, but I think that the thing that most people make a mistake on, I know that I did I'm talking recently, right? Like when you pulled up here, first thing I did, I was like, Krystin, guess what? I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? But I think the thing that most people miss is they think that the technical piece is it. Yeah. Right. And so there's this so overwhelming and it's like this foreign language. And then you finally get it right. And you're like, oh, thank God. It was so much work. That's got to be it. Right. And then it's like, okay, cool. I can hit a button and it'll send and it'll show up. And it's like, okay, great. Thank you. I'm good now. Right. And it's like, there's a whole nother piece to that conversation. Right. Yeah. So continue the story. But I think that you've gotten that part well.
Yeah. So, 10% of email deliverability is going to be technical.
10%.
And that was the percentage you were talking about from our story a long time ago, but 10%. And so now when we're talking about that, we're talking about all the things that make someone like yourself crazy because you don't want to think about, domain strategy and DNS records and whether I should have a dedicated IP and how to set up an SMTP and all, what is all that stuff? I don't want to have to think about it. Right. Yeah. And the reality is there's a lot of people out there who can help with those kinds of things. You could probably find somebody on Fiverr that knows how to put in DNS records for email. It's not hard. Right. Mm-hmm. You can find a lot of people who are going to mess it up too.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. I don't trust and I don't know. Right. It's like, I have no idea. They're like, cool, I did it. It's like, okay, did you do it right? I don't know.
Trust but verify, right?
Right, yeah.
So, but the reality is 90% of deliverability, 90% of what actually, the 10% is going to get you to the inbox most of the time, right? And you're going to get a quick win out of that and you're going to feel this this jubilee over the fact that like, oh my gosh, this is finally working. Thank you. You fixed it.
Yeah.
Right. Not realizing that fixing it was a momentary thing. Right. If all you're worried about is your DNS records and your tools being set up correctly and stuff like that, then you're missing the other 90%, which is all behavior, because behavior is what keeps you in front of people consistently. The tech gets you there initially. Getting to the inbox is important, but if you want to stay there consistently, now we have to work on the behaviors that go into email deliverability, basically.
Okay. And you figured that out because once you were with doing this marketing stuff, you figured out that language, and then you're like, cool, now there's the next piece, which is actually talking to people.
I made a lot of mistakes. That's what happened. I had a lot of fingers pointed in my face over the time of trying to figure out what was going to work and what wasn't. Because, the only way you find out is you fail forward fast, right? Just keep figuring it out, and eventually you're going to get there. And so the behavior piece was the stuff that I had to really start to hone in on. Once I figured out all the technical stuff, I was like, why isn't this working?
Yeah. Okay, so let's nerd out on that for a second. Yeah. And I want to start this conversation with list segmentation, and I will let you take the conversation where it needs to go to provide context to this, because you're the genius here. But I think that the thing that I have probably heard you say most, and the thing that when you first told me it was like the most scary thing, ironically, I'm like, you asked me to do this, which is like talk to the right people on your list. Like who should we be sending these emails to versus the emails to and like actually having different buckets and like understanding who you're talking to. And I'm like, LOL, Kristen. Like, you're like, well, who do you send to or whatever? How do you have this? I'm like, I have a list. It's called main list.
Everybody.
Right? And I hit send. Like, what do you mean? Right. And it was, and I'm hoping listeners can relate to this. If not, I'm sure they can. But if not, like, I'll just tell you, like, it was embarrassing. Right. And it was like, it was that thing of like, I know what I'm talking about, like for my stuff. Right. And I'm like, I'm a marketer, I'm a sub, like, but I'm like, I don't know, like, it kind of makes a fool of you, if that makes sense, right? And so you kept saying it, right? And it was like every time I would talk to you. And so after a while, I was like, okay, if I'm going to ever take email seriously and ever have to talk to Kristen, right? I'm like, I should probably figure this piece out, right? But once I actually got in and started doing the work, or had, and my team involved now, and thankfully I have an amazing team that helps me with some of this stuff. And I started being like, oh, I understand the benefit of it now. Okay, I understand what you're saying. I understand how a 1,200 person segment, like if you just email them and just speak to them directly, is going to be more effective than if I send it to a 7,000 person segment or a 15,000 person segment. And I had no concept of that before, right? And so I want to start there, which is walk me through, how do you segment the list? Like, how do you understand? Because you have like message to market match and who, all the different things. Like, how do you do that?
So, I mean, the concept we're talking about here is that it goes back to the fact that you might have 10,000 people on the list, but they're not all the same person. Mm-hmm. And so you have to get the right message to the right person at the right time, at the right phase of awareness, and under the right conditions. Because you're really trying to meet people right where they're at. So the way I explain this to people is, I don't play golf, so don't test me on terminology, okay? But I'm going to use golf analogy because it just works. I have a golf ball that I actually keep on my desk, and to remind myself of this, right? Like each person on the list is kind of like a golf ball on the field or the course, the green. There's golf balls all over this grass stuff, right? So there's a lot of golf balls, and it's like if you have 10,000.
It's a course, by the way.
It's a course. Thank you. If you have 10,000 people on your list and each one of them is a golf ball, the way that most marketers attack this is they treat it like all 10,000 of those golf balls are like lined up in the same spot on the course right next to the hole. I'm going to send an email to my list, right? Like you might as well just play all 9 or 18 holes with the same club. Just grab the putter because that's all you're going to need, right? Just putt those 10,000 balls right into the hole there, Josh. Send out that email to your whole list. And there are times where sending to your whole list makes sense. I do that regularly, and we do that regularly with our clients as well. It's not that you shouldn't send to your whole list. It's that you have to have a strategy that is bigger than just sending to your whole list. Otherwise, it's not really a strategy, right?
Yeah.
And so those 10,000 people, just, Tom, Dick, and Harry, whoever they are, right? Tom and Dick and Harry aren't all in the same spot on that golf course. Like Tom's over in the sand traps and Dick is in the trees and Harry is maybe next to the hole. I don't know, right? But we as marketers, we have to figure out, how do we talk to people right where they're at? How do we talk to people not just right where they're at, but in a way where they understand that we understand their problem? Because psychologically speaking, if someone believes that you understand their problem, they automatically assume you have a solution.
100%. Yep. When we do, it's the number one thing when we do Google Doc pitches and like things like that, I'm like, we always start, I tell people the most important thing to get right is the problem. I'm right. Because if you get the problem right, by default, they will trust you for the rest of the whatever you're explaining. But if you get the problem wrong, you're at a place of deficit, right? Yeah. So how, like, I want you to walk me through, I mean, it's me. I'm pretty dumb. So like, let's go like third grade, fourth grade level here for a second. Let's say I am a marketer right now and I've got an email list of 20,000 people. Okay. And this email list has been, I'm sure you've seen it a million times, right? It was built up over the course of the last 5 or 6 years of this bull run in internet marketing, right? Yeah. Where it was easy and it was emailed a bunch of time. It probably hasn't been touched in, 6 months or a year, or if it has, it's just been, I send out
the whole list.
Right, the whole list, or active last 6 months or whatever, right? It's, we got 10 or 12,000 active on there, right? And it's like, okay, probably the only tags, and I'm guessing, I'll share my experience, right? Like this, probably the only tags is you've got your main list, right? And then you've got, they bought, right? Yeah. Or maybe you've got you ran some workshops or something and you're like, they opted in, right? Yeah. But it's like, I don't know. I don't even remember what I talked about in that workshop type of deal, right? So from that point there, help me understand, like, what's the actual process of, I think first figuring out when you're like, you have to talk to them where they're at. How the frick do I figure out where they're at? Yeah. Like, how do I like, what is the actual process of going through and doing that? And like, how do I go through segmenting it?
There's two components to this. The first one is with the data that you already have. Okay. Because there's a whole lot of data I'd love to start collecting, but most people don't have it, right? So what do you already have? What do we know about each of these people on the list? Like you said, we might know they bought something. Do we know when they bought it? Do we know how much money they've spent with you total? Do we know how many times they've purchased something from you? Same thing with if they registered for webinars or challenges. Do we know how many times they've registered for the webinar or the challenge? Do we know how which days they showed up on? Did they hear the pitch? Did they not hear the pitch? Did they stay through the webinar until they heard the pitch or not, right? Like all of those things.
Let's assume
we don't know it.
Let's assume we know this piece of information. Yeah. Let's assume we know if they bought or not. Yep. Right? Like we don't even know what product maybe, right? Or like let's just say it's some low ticket product that's $9.97 or less, right? Yeah. We have a list of our clients and then we have a list of like just product buyers. And we have a list of all the webinars or trainings that they've opted into and attended. And then we have the master list. Like, let's pretend that that's the starting point.
When we start with clients, the very first thing that we want to talk with them about is what do we know about your list? And we're going after 3 groups of people. The first group is who's currently paying you. Or even if they were a pay in full, are they currently in whatever they paid for, right? So who's a current client? Second list is who's a past client.
I'm sure I have this somewhere, but keep going.
Who's a past client? Who's paid you money in the past? Maybe they paid you money for something that was a one-time purchase, like a course, or maybe they bought a challenge ticket, a VIP challenge ticket or something, or maybe they paid you money for something that was a month-to-month recurring, and then eventually they just decided to discontinue it, right? So I want to know who are your current clients, and there are people who don't know that on their list. Like they say, "Well, I know they're in here. It's gonna take me a little bit to figure out which ones." Right?
LOL, me.
Okay, and that's fine.
I was able to figure it out. Though.
Yeah, and you're not alone. Like there's a lot of this that's happening, and so current clients, past clients, we want to know who those people are. And if we know recency or redundancy on those people, then that's fantastic. If we know how many times they've done something or how recently they've done something, that's a most bonus, but that is not what most people have in their system. And sometimes we have to go outside of the system that they normally use for like email marketing. We have to say, well, where could we find that information? Are you running this through Stripe? Do you have some other payment processor? Did this all happen in some other tool that we can go and pull the information out of? Because what we want to do is richen up the contact record, right? So who are your current clients? Who are your past clients? And then the third one is a little bit harder to pull together, but it is so lucrative, and it's our almost client list. What constitutes an almost client is a very interesting conversation. I would say there's different levels of almost clients, because most of us would say, well, everybody else on the list is an almost client, right? They're a lead, hence they're an almost client. These people are all going to buy from me.
Grant Cardone right there. Right?
and awesome. I would hate to think that couldn't be true, but an almost client from our perspective is really the person that has come as close to a buying decision as possible and not bought. So if the very next step that they could take is to give you money, that's an almost client. So now we're talking about if you have had sales calls and people are qualified on the sales calls, but they didn't convert on the call.
That's not a thing in my world. If they're qualified, they give me money.
Right?
Yeah. What are you talking about? Never had that power before.
And so if you go back like 6 months and you say, here's all the people that we have had sales calls with that were qualified, that's an important aspect, and then didn't convert, then I would say those are almost clients. Like that is a very lucrative opportunity right there.
If you are having people on your sales calls that are qualified but not buying, hit me up. I will make sure that we close. All right. There's my sales pitch for you.
And then another example of an almost client would be somebody who filled out the first step of a 2-step order form. And if you're not using 2-step order forms, this is a problem, right? Because we lose.
That's why you should use ClickFunnels.
There you go. Any tool that allows you to do a 2-step order form, I'm going to go for. I love ClickFunnels too.
I know
I actually use ClickFunnels for my funnels.
I know.
So, but 2-step order form is important because there's buyer's intent there. They fill out the contact information, and then, maybe the kid starts crying or somebody knocks on the door, or they have to go find a credit card, or they get whatever. There's so many reasons why people won't finish that process. Not necessarily because they don't want to, right? There's buyer's intent. And so whoever doesn't fill out that second piece of that 2-step is a almost client in our book. And we want to find all those people. And if you're not tracking that now, start tracking it.
Yeah. And I think that was probably the biggest shift for me was when you worked with me on the 5-day challenge of the first 5-day challenge that we did for Golden Mike, right? And you set up all these automations and stuff. And for the life of me, I could not explain to you what the heck that you did. And I was like, this is cool. I'm glad you feel like we did the right thing here. But then 6 months went by, right? And I logged in and I'm like, okay, now I'm actually taking this seriously. And like all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I have data.
You have data.
Right? I'm like, oh my God. Like I can literally be like, oh, how many people did this? And I would click on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is I never had that before.
It's kind of fun just on a personal level to see what's happening. But then you realize that it's usable data.
Yeah.
It's not just data for the sake of collecting data. It's not like vanity metrics. Like, yay, I had this many people do this thing. It's like, holy heck, I now know something about these contacts that I can use not to just my benefit, but I can use it to their benefit, which is really the point, right?
Right. Let's jump into the result or the outcome of this right now, because as a teacher and an educator, and this as well, it's like you get into the weeds and then it's like, oh, this sounds great, but overwhelming. But if we can show a benefit, right? Like, it's like, oh, all of a sudden I get excited about this again, right? So the person that's going to go, and let's say, would it be safe to say that if someone had a 6 months approach to email strategy where they go, okay, look, this is not going to be fixed overnight, right? Maybe I can fix my DNS records and my technical settings in a day or two, right? But like in all reality, I'm going to take a 6 months approach to this, right? And this process happens in 6 months from now. What is how much money or what result are we talking? And I know money is relative, but kind of give us some metrics here of how significant can email change someone's life and business with an email list of 20,000 people, like I explained, versus now 6 months later going through a process like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll give you an example. We have a client that does book arbitrage.
Wow.
Of all things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so their audience are BizOp kind of people. And they also run a lot of JVs. And for several months, they weren't running JVs because they knew that their email was in poor shape. And so, there was a loss of not just financial side of things, but there was a loss of credibility, right? Because you're talking about, I can't run this JV with you and you and you and you, that we always used to do this together because my stuff's not in order, right? And so we worked with them for about 6 months to get to a place where things were stable. And then I was doing a special session one time. Let me back up. I didn't hear from them for like 6 weeks at one point. We usually talk every week. And, when a client doesn't talk with you for 6 weeks and it's usually a weekly thing, you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening over here? And I kept reaching out like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And so finally this person got on the call with me and they said, we just finished a webinar. And it was for their own stuff. It wasn't a JV. No, it was a JV. They just finished a webinar and they said they usually make about $3,500 off of this webinar. I'm like, cool. Okay. $3,500 is not, throw that away. Right. Yeah. So, but they said, we've already sold 15,000 and we just ended it like an hour ago. And, we're going to double that because we always double with the replays. Right. So he's like, we're going to get 30 grand off of this. No problem. It's the same way a 10X. It's like a 9X. Yeah. It's like a 9X change from what they were usually getting. And it was the first JV that they had run, since we had started doing all of this stuff. So it was incredible. It was an incredible moment. He spent an hour talking about how excited they were. Right. Okay. So fast forward a couple, 3 months, I'm doing a special session. It was just a live special session for the public. It wasn't anything that my clients were only involved in. And I didn't even know he was on the session on the Zoom. And I had a slide where I showed some results, right? And I was showing some things that had happened over the course of the last couple of years. And his slide was one of them. And I mentioned the story. And he got in the chat and he goes, actually, we made over 130,000 off of that.
Oh my God.
130,000 off of an offer that they had run before more than once. And they usually make, he said, about 3,500 off of it. So,
oh my gosh.
I mean, what happened was their emails were getting in front of people. And I'm not just talking about the initial email that says sign up for this webinar, right? I'm talking about all the emails that got people, not just to sign up, but to be excited about it and to show up. And then the replays after that, and maybe a bonus round after that. Yeah. Like, this is what happens when you have everything in order. I don't even know what they were selling, to be honest with you. I couldn't even tell you what the product was. I don't even know what space it was in, but I know that they know what they usually got off of it. And it was incredibly different result.
That's insane. I mean, that one, that's a pretty insane story.
Yeah.
So if someone is out there and like, okay, it's the first thing, it's current clients, past clients, almost clients, right?
Yeah.
As a starting point, right? And I'm asking selfishly for me here, right? As a starting point for that. And then I guess the fourth one would be not almost current or not almost clients, right?
There's different levels below that. Yeah.
But like from that perspective, are you sending different emails? Are you promoting different products? What's the strategy now once I have these things in place to go, okay, great. I'm going to set up these tags, or I'm going to create these lists, and I'm going to start tracking these things. Right.
Yeah.
And the things that you said were like, okay, I want to track open rates. Obviously I want to track clicks, which was once I realized I could actually start figuring out who clicked what, I was like, why do I need to know that information? Right. And then when I was like, oh, well, if I have segments, right. And I'm like, oh, I know who actually clicked that. That's crazy. Yeah. Right. So it's like, okay, opens and clicks and, when was there, how often do they open and things like that. It's like, okay, now I've started to got some segments here. Right. What's the email strategy now from that? Like how does my communication change? Yeah. Because I think that particularly for someone like me who primarily writes at least all of my own marketing emails still. And I know people are like, why do you, I'm like, I don't know. We're getting close. I'll give it up eventually. But as of now, and I go, that's a lot of emails now. If I got to write 4 different emails to promote one thing, does that make sense?
Let's talk about that. Because this is a common thing where people hear me say segmentation and they go, but now I have to write more emails than I'm writing.
Right.
I'm used to just writing an email and it goes to everybody. Right. And you want me to write multiple emails so I can segment it out.
And then it's
kind of.
And then even that is like, okay, well, if I have to segment it out, do I have to promote a different offer? Like, do I have to create something different over here? Yeah. Like, is it like, so to me, it's like a multiplication effect, right? It's like of complexity.
Yeah.
Right.
Now listen, I have to write so much more. And none of us want to write a bunch more emails.
ChatGPT's been pretty amazing, not gonna lie. Like,
yeah. But let me put it in context for you. So that 1 month that was over 1 million that I told you about, that was the list at the time that we did that was probably closer to 18 or 19,000 people. And I don't remember how many, it was 3,000 or 6,000 people, but whatever it was a portion of their list. The portion of the list that we sent that to was the people who had been on a sales call in the last 6 months and not converted. That segment, like I said, is very lucrative because they have buyer's intent. Like they are so close to signing on the dotted line. And so we had also been collecting other information about them, though. It wasn't just that they'd been on a sales call and not converted. I actually knew other things about them because we encouraged the salespeople to start documenting things that they weren't documenting before, and also in places where we could use the data. So a lot of times the salespeople document things on a journal notepad or a spreadsheet, or they put it in the form of a note or something like that.
You should see my desk.
Right?
I just have a stack of paper and I'm just like new client every time, and eventually it gets like this high and I'm like, all right, we can just go burn all that because
But if we're on 1,000 sales calls and we have documentation about what was the key desire, what was their key pain point, what were the offers that were discussed, what were the objections to overcoming the objections through the offer, what were the next steps that were lined out. If we know those things, and these are things we should be. I mean, I'm not a sales expert, but I know enough to know that those are the things I need to know if I'm on a sales call, right? Because I'm trying to help you. And if I don't at least know that information, then I really don't know how to help you, right? So, but now we're just saying, just document it in a way that's usable data. And so we gave the sales form, like 6 months prior to that, we gave them, the sales team, a form to fill out. And at first we had them fill it out in just plain text, like, key desire, and they would just type out a sentence, or key pain point, they would just type out a sentence. Then I took all of the data from 500 or 600 people that had been on calls, and I translated that into basically categories. And I said, these are the most common pain points. These are the most common key desires. These are the most common objections, blah, blah, blah. And then we started to put it into discrete questions on the form so that they would pick from a drop down. Was it this one, this one, this one, this one, right? And there was still a free form space for them to type, right? Yep. Now, all of a sudden, in our database, I can go find all the people that had a specific pain point.
Wow.
And I can put an email out with an offer in the context of overcoming that pain point and achieving that key desire.
Do your contacts, like if you log in, because you use tags for everything, right?
I use tags for a lot.
Yeah. Like, some of your contacts just have like hundreds of tags?
No. Oh, I love that you asked that question, because that's common too. And I see, we have a client yesterday we were just on a call with 8,300 tags in their system. It's a record. It's truly a record. If anyone else has a larger number of tags, I haven't seen it yet, but 8,300 is a record, right? And so, so we're going through this painful process now of helping them to understand what all of those mean and do, and how we can kind of like narrow that down, right? But the deal is, we don't want all of our contacts to be like tag rich. That's not what we're after. We're after it to be tag specific. So like, let's say that I send you a link to a new thing that I'm offering, right? Or a landing page that I want you to go to. And then I'm going to track that you clicked on that link. And then later you get to the landing page and you fill out the contact information because you're opting into it. So I'm going to give you an opt-in tag, but I'm going to remove the click tag. So I actually have the automation set up to have the most current state or status that you have. That's the tag that you have. So like, think of it as points on the line. If they're a brand new lead coming into your ecosystem over here and they've bought everything you could possibly offer them over here, then all along that journey, there's points on a line. Have they done this? Have they done this? And it's kind of like when you're doing like you're climbing the face of a cliff, and I don't know the terms for these either, but you like clip into the little hook that's never supposed to come out, or you're going to die, right? Yeah. You clip into that, and then you climb up to the next little thing, and you click into the next one. Yeah. It's like that, right? So like, I want them to move to the next point on the line, and I'm going to track that they made it that far. And the rest of this doesn't matter to me. They made it this far. I need to know where they're at right now. So getting the right message to the right person at the right time, right phase of awareness, right conditions. If I know where they're at on the points on that line, they're on that marketing journey. Well, then I now know how to talk to them.
Okay. So I want to go back to the email thing. I like how you're writing content, right? Because we haven't fully addressed that. And I want to do it for that, because like, as you're saying these things, I'm like, only because I've had 62 conversations with you over Voxer and like with this, do I actually understand why like these things are important and not overwhelming, right? Because I think that for most people, I honestly believe, at least from the people that I've talked to and me personally, I think the number one objection to email or like doing email well is simply overwhelm, right? Like, would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the tech, and I'm not a copywriter.
Right. Yeah. And it's just like, Krystin, do you know how many things you just said? Right? Like, you're like, okay, great analogy, but then I have to go set it up. Like, can I just like buy all the automations from you? Right? Like, does that make sense? Right? So let's go back to the copywriting thing. And then we're going to come back to the tech thing too. But like, from a copywriting perspective now, are you saying that, let's go back to my list of 20,000, right? if I were to segment these things out in, buyers, current buyers, past clients,
buyers,
all that,
almost.
that I'm now basically sending, rather than sending one email to everybody, I'm still sending, let's say an email a day or something like that, but I'm only sending it to a segment of the list so they rotate through, or like how does that work?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So like I would encourage you to send to your whole list on a regular basis, because they just need to see you. Like you need to be in front of them. Whether they've bought stuff from you or not doesn't really matter. They just need to see Josh Forti's content, right? But if you're
This is why the podcast has been really helpful.
There you go.
Yeah. And that's been a fun game for us of like doing a ramp up, right? Of like being like, okay, here are active people, and then slowly adding from the main list into that, and being like, okay, cool. Do our open rate stay? Or, all that, and getting it up to where, and then playing with the subject lines, right? That's been, I don't know if fun is the right word, but it's been a game to where it's like, okay, cool. I can now actually see. And now, like whenever we send out an email to the list with the podcast or whatever, I'm like, the only stat I look at is just, do they open it? Because I don't care if they clicked it. I mean, whatever, right? Like,
we'll get there eventually.
Right. But like, that's more of like, I care about that from a podcast perspective, but not from an email perspective, right? Yeah. If it's like, okay, were they interested in it? But that's been so helpful, because I'll do some and I'll click it and I'm like, oh, they only 38% open this one, right? Versus 58% open this one, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. But we're sending to everybody now, right? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, at least everybody is getting an email once a week with content, even if I'm not promoting anything, right? Whereas beforehand, it would be like 6 months before, they get an email, and then I'm like, time to do a launch, right? email, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh gosh. Yeah. For the average person, if I have this segmented list, what am I like? What do I send to this list versus this list versus this list?
I think you're getting caught up in the technicalities of it, Josh. I want to just caution you. Like, it's not about what do I send to this list or that list. It's about, if I'm promoting something, how do I best promote it to the people who are most likely to respond positively to it, right? So let's say that you wanted to promote this podcast, right? You have people on your list who've shown interest in your podcast in the past. Maybe you have a subsegment of those people who've shown interest most recently and or in a topic like what we're talking about, right? And so if I'm going to send out an email to promote this podcast, yes, I want to send it to my whole list, but first I want to send it to the people who are most likely to respond positively to it. Because if they don't even respond well to it, then I know I have a problem. And by sending it to people who are most likely to respond positively first, you're sending signals to the mailbox providers that people want your stuff and that they should put more of the stuff coming from your domain in front of those people. And so it doesn't even have to be days apart or hours apart. It could be like maybe you wait 30 or 60 minutes. So you send it to like the first portion of the list that are most likely to respond positively. And then you queue up the next one, let's say an hour later, and maybe another segment an hour later after that. But honestly, if the first segment doesn't perform well, then I'm glad I didn't send it out to the whole list.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that it's like, okay, imagine you have an email list that you just send, like with our podcast list, right? It's like you just have an email that goes out every week to everybody, right? And you just kind of know that like that's the full list type of thing. But then if you're getting ready to do a promotion specifically, right? It's not like you're not going to send this normal email out, right? Because that's just what everybody gets. Right. But it's like we do a workshop, right? Every week, or whatever. So it's like, okay, great. We're gonna do a workshop, and it's gonna be about how to sell to wealthy clients, right? And it's like, okay, cool. We're gonna send out, we got our podcast list or our main list that we're sending out to 20,000 people, right? And then it's like, but with the workshop list, we know that these almost clients will be the best one. And let's say that list is 1,800 people, right? Yep. We're going to still send the podcast list out to the main one, but we're going to send this promotion out to the 1,800 people first.
Maybe so.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you know who's already registered and or attended workshops in the past, those are going to be your better people to send this next workshop to, as opposed to sending it to the whole list. And I don't want people to hear me say we can't, it's not a black and white thing. Like, it's not that you can't market the workshop to the whole list. It's that you want to send it to the best people first. You're going to get the biggest bang for the buck that way. And honestly, you may fill your workshop. Maybe there's a space limitation on your Zoom or whatever. You may fill your workshop off of the first segment of that list and then talk about it with the rest of your list. We just did this amazing thing. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. And Tom, Dick, and Harry learned all these things. And here's the stuff they said, all the normal stuff you would do, right? Send that out to your whole list. Wait, how come I didn't hear about that workshop? I mean, there's so many things we could talk about in that realm, but
no, that makes sense. Okay. I think I have a good understanding of that now. And I think that covers that. Let's go back to the tag question really quick. And then we're going to shift it into more of an overview, which is when you're talking about this journey, this client journey or customer journey, okay? Like, okay, are they going through or whatever? To someone that understands email or to someone that like has that mapped out, that might be a little bit, easier. I want you to talk to somebody who is, Brad Gibb. Yep. Okay. So like, I want you to talk to a Brad, right? I want you to talk to somebody who they're not a marketer, but they get it, right? They understand it, roughly. But they're not a marketer, right? But they know what they're doing. I mean, like Brad knows what he's doing and he's got a great product, right? I mean, he's got a great offer and he's like, okay, look, I know that I need to be tracking some things. I know that I need to be understanding the process of these things, right? Like to the person that has 5 or 10,000 or even 20,000 people on their list, right? And it's like, now I want to get to a point where I'm scaling, right? Like, no, I'm taking this seriously. I want to start growing my list, right? And this is the spot where I'm into, where I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, finally, I'm like, I get it, right? Where I'm like, I know I need my email list. Where do I start? Like, what's my plan? What is plan A? Like step one of these are the core things that you need as far as tracking is concerned. And as far as like, this is what to at least have a starting point.
One of the things I love to do with people who don't really have data is I love to start collecting interest-based data. So what are the different people on my list interested in? And you and I both have stuff that we sell. We know who our avatar is. We know their pain points. We know their key desires. If we were to like line up all of the pain points of our avatar on a spreadsheet, let's just say, and, say it from their perspective, like my emails just keep going to spam. I don't know how to fix it. I don't understand DNS records. I'm not really sure how to write a proper hook, in my subject line, like whatever the things are. If you just kind of line all those up and then you look at them holistically, they kind of group themselves into little categories. Yep. I call those buckets of pain.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay. My little term. So if you take and don't stop at 30.
I should get you a shirt.
Like go to at least 50 on that list. You know what I mean? But like you should really be hitting closer to 100 on that list.
I can just ask ChatGPT, be like, ChatGPT, this is my client. What do they?
And in their words, with their terminology, right? Which is really important. And so then you group them all into buckets. You're going to end up with 7 to 9 buckets usually. Okay. So one of those buckets might be, past experiences. Right. Or one of those buckets might be, I'm not a techie. Or one of those buckets for me might be, I'm not a copywriter. Right. Or resources could be a bucket. Like I just don't have the time. I don't have the team, whatever it is. So you kind of group them into buckets. And the reason I'm going down this is because not only do we need to know this about our avatar anyway, but if you understand what those 7 to 9 buckets are, 7 to 9. Then now you can, all of your copy already is within those buckets, if we're being honest. Like if you look at those buckets and you go, well, I wrote this copy and it fits into this bucket and this bucket, I'm already doing it. Yeah, you are, because you know your audience and you know how to talk to them. But what you're not doing is you're not tracking whether Sally Smith or Tom, Dick, and Harry are interested in this bucket versus this bucket, right? So what I like to do is take those 7 to 9 buckets and turn them into tags. Interest, so it's like INT dash techie, INT dash whatever. Tags, Okay, whatever your buckets are. And those buckets, by the way, you don't choose them, much like your core values. You don't choose your core values. They just are. You don't choose the buckets. They just are. It's like the cream just rises to the top and you go, oh, that makes sense. They fit into those buckets, right? And so once you create the interest tag for each of those buckets, then now you look at the buckets and maybe each bucket has 2 pain points, 5 pain points, 8 pain points, whatever it is in them. You just start writing copy from within those buckets and addressing those pain points. And you push it out and you start tagging people who are showing engagement with that copy.
For example, like maybe I do a YouTube video that's teaching it and it's like, hey, watch this YouTube video. And anybody that clicks on the link to go watch the YouTube video or you give out a freebie or whatever. Or
interested in that topic, that bucket of pain, right? They're resonating with it. It's so fun. And it's so fun for them too. Let's think about it from that perspective. Because, we see here, we're marketers and we're doing all the marketing things. But what's really cool about this is the person who's now receiving the copy, because you understand that they've shown interest in this bucket and this bucket. So you're making sure they're getting stuff related to those topics. They're like, oh my gosh, he understands me. He understands my problem. And as they're reading your email, what we want is them to do this while they're reading it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's been a frustration. That's been something I've been trying to figure out.
Manipulation is amazing. No, I'm just kidding. No, it really is though. No, like I like it when, like, I think when people know what is happening to them, right? Like, psychology works even if you know what's being done to you.
Absolutely.
Right? And I'm like, if you're going to manipulate me, at least be good at it, right? Because it's all manipulation, right? Like everything in life is manipulation. And that's, I don't mean that in a negative context, right? But it's just like all of it is persuading and belief shifting, right? And like really all manipulation is just negative belief shifts, where I'm talking about positive belief shifts here, right? But it's like, it's interesting where I think that, you know, I'm a pretty logical person, but also I'm like an extremely emotional person. And I don't mean like emotional, like, I mean like I make...
You're not going to squirt a tear right now?
Right. But like the way that I make decisions, right? It's like, I was with someone yesterday on the podcast. We were talking afterwards, and it's like, it's so funny. Whenever I watch a 5-day challenge, or whenever I watch go to an event or whatever, I'm like, I need to listen to the speaker for 3 minutes and I made my decision, right? Like I know within the first 3 minutes whether or not I'm buying, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, that's so, you're like, how could you possibly know? And it's like, I don't know. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, once I've gotten past that, right? Like, then I'm like, cool. Now I trust you. Manipulate the heck out of me. Like, you know what I mean? Like make me believe it, like brainwash me, like I'm in, right? But it's like, in order to do that, in order for someone to win that trust, right? They've got to know me, right? They've got to know. And that's what you're saying here, right? Is like, you're saying, hey, look, understand this. And then it becomes fun because now the logical side of you, right? The one that like kind of look and be like, okay, well, if they've got this, and this pain, right? Then let me figure out where my solution fits in. And now it's like, you're getting paid to think for your person, right? You're getting paid to put together big solutions. And so it would seem that sometimes I'm so extreme with my examples. Dan Henry, dang it. But like, it would seem that like what you're essentially doing with email, it would seem like there's two core pieces to this, right? It's one is you are trying to create a dashboard tool, let's call it, right? You're trying to create a tool and a place where you can now understand your clientele. You can understand your base, your list, right? To where you can look at it and you can go, okay, I have this data and now I can do this to this to that. And you can basically understand and make decisions based off of, and it's going to help you make better products. It's going to help you make all these better things, right? That seems to be part one. And then part two is now you're also going to use that tool and that information to now communicate back to them. Right.
In a language that makes sense to them.
Right.
When I first started talking about email deliverability, and I would talk about DNS records and SMTPs and, you know, a bunch of other words that no one should have to understand. You know, I got it was harder to have that conversation with people because they're like, I don't understand everything you're talking about. Right. And to take a note from Dan Henry, actually, he's the one who taught me how to do I don't know what he calls the survey. I call it a golf survey. Goal, obstacle, learn, fear. I ran a it's golf. Sorry. I don't even know why. It's weird, right?
Yeah. Like all these golf things.
It just comes to it. So maybe I should learn how to play golf, but
if you ever do, let me know. 'Cause I'll take a lesson with you. 'Cause I have no idea. Brad invited me out. He's like, when you hang out with rich people, it's so insane. Brad's like, hey, by the way, do you ever play golf? And I'm like, no. He's like, oh,
like putt?
No, like actual golf, right? He's like, well, because like we have this private jet that comes and like goes to this insane golf course down in Utah every Monday. So if you ever want to come and hang out on the private jet and go to this insane golf, I texted him back and I was like, I will learn golf. I was like, tell me the time and day. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was like 100%.
I'm not saying no to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Dan has this survey, and I don't remember exactly how I learned this from him, but I termed it golf, goal, obstacle, learn, fear. What's your number one goal related to X? What's the number one obstacle keeping you from achieving that goal? What's the number one thing you want to learn about X? And what's the number one thing that you're most afraid of? What's the number one fear? And you don't word it exactly like that because people aren't going to respond to those kinds of words. But if you change up the language a little bit, you can still get the answers to those questions. And what's really interesting is like I will run a survey like that. I've done this a couple of times, even on my Facebook profile, where I've said, hey, I'm thinking about, and this is a Dan thing, like, hey, I'm thinking about putting a train. I'm getting a lot of questions on X, thinking about putting a training together on this. And I don't know if it's going to be like a downloadable PDF or a 4-part video series or what it's going to end up being. But like, is this something you'd be interested in? And then you just get all the interest, right? And then you have them all fill out the survey. And the last time I did this was incredible. I think I had 140 people who answered the survey. And when you get 140 people who answer all those questions, I know Without a doubt. I know what their key desires are because that's the number one goal, right? The obstacle, I know what their limiting beliefs are. I skip over learn for a second. I know what their fears are, their pain points, right? And then I usually do GOFL. So like goal, obstacle, fear, learn. That's how I like to do it. But I like to put the learn one last because frankly, it kind of doesn't matter as much. But why it does matter is I know what they think they need.
What they think they need. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I learn all that stuff. But then on top of that, because they're answering free text, I know the words and phrases they're using to describe it. And those weren't the words and phrases that I was using.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's crazy how powerful that can be, though, right?
Powerful.
Yeah. It's also annoying how effective, like, simple things like that are. Dan Henry, shout out to Dan, dude.
Yeah.
Next time you're back in the greatest country in America and not a trader, no, I'm just kidding. And come out to Denver, we'll do a podcast. But I actually just looked this up yesterday. So Dan made a post that I bought off of, right? And
I saw that post.
His post, I have to read this to you because, like, you know what he's doing, right? And it's just like,
dang it.
He closed $100,000 deal off of this stupid post. And I'm the one that paid it. Off of a post. Right? I'm the one that paid it. And I saved this. Not for this episode, but I think it's like relevant to what you're talking about when you're talking about like understanding your people, right? Mm-hmm. Or like testing things, like kind of putting it out there. He goes, let's play a fun little game. So you guys already know I've consistently done high 6 figures and many times 7 figures whenever I've done a virtual event or challenge. I'm sitting here staring out at the mountains and thinking of an offer. I'll write your entire challenge. Just say what I tell you. I'll build an entire challenge funnel. Just send traffic. I'll write all the promo emails. Just send them to your list. I'll write the VSL copy. Just record it. I'll write the ad copy. Just copy and paste in the ads manager. Suck at tech. I'll preload all this into a CRM software. Just log in. All you have to do is show up to Zoom and speak. And before I do all this, I'll spend 3 days with you in person to understand your business. If you had to guess, what would I charge for the above? And what number would it be? Right? And like, you know, all the people are like commenting down below or whatever, right? And it's just like, so he's getting all this data. And my comment was, just tell me how much. You know what I mean? Like, I know you already know, Dan, right? But then everybody on there's commenting like 100 grand, 100, you know, plus percentage. I'm like, crap, why? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that's what he's going to charge. And sure enough, it was, right? But it was like, oh, the validation of it, right? Like to actually know what people are saying
all
about that.
All those key desires, pain points were in there. Yeah. And then he just closed down time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. This is very powerful stuff. Let's shift gears a little bit. And I want to go into a little bit more of a holistic business perspective from you as a person and a business owner, right? You have, I think there are different categories of businesses, right? There's the people that have actually figured out like how to run a business, right? Where it's like they've got a big team and they've got all different things and they've got to run ads and they've got to like get
department,
like what? Like oh my gosh, right? Like all the things, right? And you know they do very, very well. I mean, your Perry Belchers and your Russell Brunsons and they like high level type of stuff. Yeah. And I think then there's obviously there's beginners, right? And then there's people that are more of a me style or even a Dan Henry style business, right? Where it's kind of like, how do we make as much money as possible with the least amount, like the most amount of leverage, right? With the least amount of people, right? To where we can come in and then there are people like, I think another category of bucket where there's you, right? And like, and people.
Am I by myself?
No, but like there's people, but I think like, there's just a different business model. It still works insanely well, right? It's just a different approach to it, right? And one of the things that I noticed about you very, very early on was how insanely accessible you were, right? And how much you just took care of your clients, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I would look at you and I'm like, I don't even understand how. Like, do you have a life? Like, do you go on date night? Like, do you take a day off or whatever? Right? But like, cause like anytime I would need something or anytime I would talk to someone, they're like, oh, I'll just have Krystin. And I'm like, she talks to you too. You know what I mean? And it was like, you were just accessible, right? And I think that in today's market, we have this tendency, at least from marketers, to tell you of like, what's the least amount you can do for your clients, right? How do you get out of the day-to-day, right? How do you not talk to your clients? How do you automate everything? How do you do this? And you have seemed to be taking the entire different approach to that, where you're like, how do I make sure every need is met? And I'm like, I don't know how you scale that, but now you've started to figure out, like, I think you said you have 9 people or 8 people on your team?
People now,
8 people, yeah. Right? To where it's like, and they're involved in this, but I'm like, you seem to be a superhuman. I'm like, my mom is a superhuman. She homeschooled 8 children as a stay-at-home mom. Like, what? That's a prophet. Like, a saint, right? Like, holy cow. That similar type of thing where I'm like, you work with so many people and you've got so many different things going on, yet I feel like you give just as much detail to the person that has 500 or 1,000 people on their list that are just starting out as the person that has millions, right? And not only do I think that that's very biblical, by the way, don't show favoritism, but explain that to me, right? How do you even...
How do I do that? Yeah, where it comes from is the nursing background. It's the fact that I truly care about people, right? And so I want to take care of them. And as a nurse, when I don't know how many people really understand this, but there's a lot of people involved in a caring of a patient, a lot of different departments, so to speak. But the nurse is what's called the coordinator of care. And so if you just kind of think of it as a wheel and the nurse is kind of like in the center and the nurse is making sure that this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, I'm not doing all those things. I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I'm not doing all those things, right? It takes a team to manage that patient care. But it's the same way in the business. Basically, I kind of see myself as the coordinator of care for our patients, right?
That makes sense.
Our clients are our patients, and I like to make sure that they have good outcomes at the end of the day. And no one's allowed to, fall on my shift. Like there's lots of rules around this stuff, but I can't do everything. I was in the beginning, obviously. I think we all start out that way, but over time, we bring in people on the team. I have a fabulous girl on my team. Her name's Tanya. She's a client success manager. And when we introduce her to people, when we're getting started with a new client, we'll always get on what we call a jumpstart call with them. And I'll introduce her as she's the person who does the work. I'm the one who talks a lot, right? I mean, she truly does the work. Like she's monitoring and managing the crap out of this thing. She's making sure every box is checked, every little detail of what we're supposed to be doing, because there is a method to our madness, and we do take you through this process, right? But she makes sure that all of that's happening. And there are times where I will just blaze on past a couple of those check boxes, and then I'll say to her, Tanya, what am I missing? Because I know I'm missing something. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I'm just going. I'm a train and I'm just rolling down the track. And then my team always jokes with me that they're trying to lay the track while the train is rolling. But Tanya keeps everything, managed well. So, and she keeps her eyes on everything. And I have other people on the team. Michelle keeps her eyes on data as well. Sometimes, she'll come into the Slack channel and she'll say, hey, I don't know if you are aware of this, but, this particular domain is on this blacklist. What does that mean? What do we need to do? Right? Yeah. So I may be visible. Yep. And accessible to some degree, but it doesn't mean I'm doing all the work. I'm definitely not doing all the work, right? Yeah. I'm just keeping my eyes on the prize, and I have a lot of people who are making sure that I can see those things.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, actually. It definitely comes across how much you care, though, about people, because it's like, I mean, I think I even sent you a Vox one time where I was like, I don't want to, like, I'm so sorry to bug you, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, you're a client. I'm like, yeah, but it's not like I paid you $100,000 or anything, right? You're like, yeah, but you're still, yeah, no. But like,
will you feel better if I send you a bill?
If somehow that made me a lot more money instantaneously, then sure. But like, that's what I also like about you, though. Like I said, it's like, you understand it's got to be tied to money, right? But it was like, you were like, no, but you're a client. I need to make sure that you're taken care of, right? And it was like, oh, yeah, because that's how you're supposed to treat people, right? Like, oh, yeah. because of course, right? Yeah. And I think I've adopted a lot of that in my business recently too. Because one of the questions I've been asking myself is, I think there's coaches, there's consultants, and there's service providers, right? And at least in my head, I've kind of bucketed it as coaches are on one side, service providers on the other, and consultants are kind of in the middle, right? Like, if that makes sense, where it's like, I think a consultant is different than a coach because I think they are more involved in the actual business itself. Brad explained it like, if I hire a coach, it's because I want to learn something. If I'm hiring a consultant, it's because I want them to blaze the path ahead of me and make sure that for my specific thing, like, they're going to connect me with the people that I need to be connected with for me specifically. Yeah. And there's going to be some coaching, right? So there's a service component to it. Yeah. And then there's all sorts of combinations of these things, right? And I really do believe that in the market, at least that we're in, that strictly and only service, if the only thing that you offer was service, there was no education, there was no like this, that is not as valuable as coaching, right? I also think that when you have the other side of the extreme, where it's just coaching and there's no services, that there's downsides to that as well, right? Mm-hmm. You seem to be you seem to have a blend, right? But I'm curious, like, how do you see the balance between, because you obviously do a lot of servicing, but it's not just, you do a lot of education too. Like, what's that balance look like from how you view what you do for your clients?
It's going to go back to nursing. You know, when you're a patient, you're in room, 12, 16 or whatever, and you've got something going on. I can't come in and do that for you. And even if I did stuff for you in that room in that moment to get you through that time, it doesn't fix the problem unless you understand what caused it in the first place and you know what it takes to fix it, right? And so the way that I look at our business is it's a combination of we're going to coach you, and coaching is an interesting word. I like to say we're going to come alongside you and we're going to walk along the path with you to the place that you're trying to get. And we're going to let you help us define where that is. So like, I'm not saying we're going to go here. I'm asking you, what's your goal for this program? Where do you want to get to? How are we going to measure success? That's the first call. We want to understand those things because we need to have some kind of measuring stick, and we need to have an understanding and a level set, frankly, of what it is we're trying to accomplish. So it's not like pie in the sky, but it's also not sort of just left undefined. What are we trying to do here? And so we walk you along the path. We kind of like hold out the light in front and say, this is the way we need to go. And at times, Jesus actually just came to mind when I was thinking about this, the whole footprints in the sand thing. Yeah. I am not Jesus. Okay. So let's just get that straight. But what came to mind is like, we hold the light out in front, and sometimes we do carry, like sometimes we say, let us go in and configure that for you. Let me help you get this straightened out. Let me go in and understand. Let me take this apart and help you put it back together, because it's overwhelming for that person in that moment. And we need to help them get through that process. But we're also going to come back and say, here's how we did this. Here's what we found. Here's what we're going to recommend that we do to fix it. Right. Yeah. So there's a combination. We have clients that we more coach than do for you. And then we have clients that we more do for you than coach. But we would never want to do it for you without that education component and keeping people apprised of the situation and what's happening, because they need to understand it or they won't buy into it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a good balance too. And I like what you said at the end of it, right? Where you have different levels, right? Like different levels of the program, right? Where it's like, hey, this one is a little bit more of the education. And like, if you need it, we'll give you some support too, right? Like, we'll come in there. And then there's one probably bigger clients, I would assume, right? Where there's a little bit more involvement there on that. From at least a principal perspective, is the principles and the strategies as far as like your approach to email the same in both categories? I mean, obviously a bigger list is going to look a little different, but like
basically the same. I mean, email deliverability and strategy is just kind of a thing. It doesn't really matter if your list is 1 million or 1,000. Yeah. It's still going to be the same deliverability things that we have to go through to lay a solid foundation, and it's still going to be the same basic strategy. There's just more data, more people. And if you're at the 1,000 and you're scaling up to 1 million, then all we're going to do is just take all of this and we're just going to scale it, right? If you're already at the 1 million, it's going to take longer maybe to get where we're trying to go, because we're trying to, maybe you haven't engaged your 1 million people, maybe only 200,000 of them are engaged, and the other 800,000 are like, who are you? I haven't heard from you in months. Yeah. Right. That's a different project. So there are some differences depending on how how big your list is and how much you've actually talked to them in the last, let's say 90 days. Right.
Well, it's so interesting because, Sam Evans, right? So
I met him.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
When did you get to meet him?
Yeah. This is a funny story. I was at Driven Mastermind with Perry and Qasim Islam and Jason Fladlian. It was the very first one I attended. I was asked to speak. It was in Los Angeles. And
that's right. You told me that.
I did because I voxed you. I was sitting at the table and I heard whispers and everybody's like, Sam Evans. Yeah. And I'm like, what? I turn around, I see Sam Evans walking in the room and I'm thinking to myself, what the heck? So I voxed you and I was like, Sam Evans just walked in the room. He's going to speak. And you said, no, he didn't. He doesn't do that.
Yeah. I was like, there's no way he comes to events.
He's here right now. And then I had to get up and speak after Sam.
Okay.
What the stink?
To be fair though, Sam is, and I am a huge Sam fan. I'm invested in his company. I've joined his masterminds. Like, we text back and forth every now and then. I'm friends with Sam. But he is the most boring and neutral speaker like on earth, right? He's just brilliant, so people listen.
It wasn't like there was a presentation.
Right, right. Like I convinced him, this was back early school days or whatever, because he was trying to figure out like direction they wanted to, kind of promote or whatever. And he was like, how do I get in front of Brunson if I wanted to have a conversation with him? And I was like, well, I can introduce you to him, but I'm like, but you should make some effort, right? So I like convinced him to come to an event there at, ClickFunnels, and he walked into the room, right? And the same thing, everyone's like, oh my gosh, is he really here, right? And then we're all going up and like giving like a piece of advice or like whatever, and it was like Sam's like the very last person, right? Like it's like 10 o'clock at night or whatever it was, and he just gets up there and he goes, so this is what we're seeing that's working. So, and it was like literally that the whole entire time. Yeah. And everyone is just like locked in, glued, and they get done. And everyone's like, yeah, I'm like, that is not fair, man. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, this is back before he started school. We were in a mastermind one time and someone was asking him about email. And this is like, Sam has a lot of status. He has a lot of pull, right? And if you don't have a strategy, if you don't understand things, right? Like he said, he can say one thing and like, that's your belief system until someone like you can come along and break it, right? But he goes, someone's like, how do you, pro sending emails and segment and this or whatever? And he's like, I just send it to my list. Right. And they're like how many, like you just send it? And he's like, yeah, like when I have something to say, I write an email and I hit send and it goes out to like 600,000 people. And I'm like, I'm way overthinking this email thing. Right. And so then I start doing that, not understanding like that Sam's list is very different than my list or whatever, right? And then you come along and you tell me, hey, this should be 50% here, 40%. And I'm like, oh my gosh, mine are like 18 or like 20. And I'm like, Sam, you ruined my email list, man. Right? But it's interesting how so many people have different approaches and so many people have different skill sets, right? Yeah. And so I'm curious, I kind of want to shift the conversation into the last kind of phase of this, I think, which is you clearly have the skill set of email, right? Like you understand it and you've gotten incredible results with it. What's next for you? And what I mean, like, and I know you're not leaving email or anything, right? But like, what's next for you in the business? What's the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, however far out? Like, what's that look like? Because how long have you been in email? How long have you been in this?
Since 2019. So
2019,
about 5 years.
5 years. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, 5 years is not that long, but it feels like an eternity. Right when you're in it, right? And like you are in it, right? You are in it every single day. Like I'm sure you've spent more time in email than most people spend in their career 20 years, right? I mean, like you are in it.
Every day, right?
Like all the time. Every time I box you, it's, I'm at the airport or whatever and you're, blah, 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 blah. And you're this or here. Oh yeah, let me just hop on. Or it's, 1 o'clock in the morning and you're like, yeah, let me fire up like my computer quick. I'm like, oh my gosh. But like, so I think you've done the work, right? And you're at a point where you've got some success and you've got some things working and you've got good people around you. What's the next 6, 12 months look like?
Yeah, I'm interested in taking risks. And
interesting.
I know this is kind of where this is going right now. So,
is this new? Are you a risk taker?
Well, my mom, all growing up, used to call me her rebel. So maybe not new. Sorry, Mom. Anyway, no, I like to compete with myself. I don't compete with other people. I'm not interested in that, but I do like to compete with myself. So I'm always asking like, what is the next thing that I can accomplish? And, one of those things is our software. Excuse me. I'm trying to really put a focus on our software and make it better than what it is now. I just want to see it be able to do more things for people. I want to incorporate more AI and more evaluations. And I want to be able to just let people press an easy button. Like when they go in and they grade their copy, they put in their subject line, their copy, and it spits out some stuff. I want it to do more. I have visions in my head of, fairy tales of like what this is going to do. The statistical aspect of our software that pulls in all the stats and it says like, here's all of the stats and here's the color coding that shows you what's going well and what's not. I love that, but I would love it even more if there were automations tied to it that notified me or my team members when certain things were happening, good or bad, so that we could use that as an opportunity to act in the moment as opposed to finding out about it when we happen to log in, which is how most software works, right?
Okay. I'm glad you brought up the software thing because I had forgotten about that topic. Your software is incredibly helpful, like incredibly helpful.
Thank you.
And it's one of the, you know Troy Erickson?
I don't know him.
But you know who he is? The email paramedic guy?
I've heard his name.
Yeah. So I had him on here. You both do email, but completely different categories, right? I mean, it's so different. But we were talking about high level, right? And we were talking about how high level ruined software, right? Like for like, because everybody gets to claim they have a software. Right?
Oh,
does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
And like, listen, I'm not throwing shade here, right? We don't need to have that conversation, but like, it was like a joke of like, everyone comes in now, just like everyone can be an internet marketer when ClickFunnels came along. It's like now everybody can have a software because it's not theirs. It's like not white labeled. And it's just some other thing that you slap your name on. Yours is actually very, very different than that, right? Like yours actually solves a very unique problem. And the visuals that like when it's plugged in, you can kind of like see, I'm like, oh, I can actually see like from not just a number, but like an actual visual of what this looks like and all that. It's been very, very helpful. But one of the things that it would appear is I want you to actually let's start this. Explain what your email software does before I ask my question so that people have context.
Yeah, it does different things, some things that you haven't even seen yet that we're about ready to roll out. But one of the things is called a copy grader. So it grades the copy. You put in your subject in your copy and you just push a button and it lights up like a Christmas tree. This is before you send it. This is not a send kind of a test. There's other software out there you can push a button and actually send an email and it'll give you some feedback. And I don't really use those because I feel like the feedback that I get from those softwares is not in the context of the feedback that I really need. I don't find it helpful. So my software grades it before you send it, and then you have an opportunity to make some changes. And like I told you at the beginning of this discussion, I use that software regularly with new clients because I know that I can bump up open rates almost immediately by just running their existing copy through the software and making some changes, right?
And it's just like finding words that would
words, phrases, punctuation, other non-standard stuff like it'll grade different things besides words. But the whole idea here is that you get to decide what hill you're going to die on. Like, are you, because like with one of our clients, ad buying was a service that they provided, and that is how it is termed, ad buying. And so the word ad was going to flag, and it was in there, a couple, 3 times or whatever. And so I fixed all the other words and stuff around it. I fixed everything around it. I left ad buying because I'm not going to change it. It's not going to be advertising buying. Like, what am I going to say?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's not that I have to get rid of everything that flags, it's that I just want to kind of like lessen the number of flags so that Daddy Google doesn't look at it and go, what's happening over here? This looks very promotional. This looks spammy, whatever. Right. So that's one of the things it does. Another thing it does is it connects to, if you do use High Level, it connects to High Level and Mailgun on the back end, and it pulls in all of your stats in a really easy view. Like you don't have to click 5 levels deep to find a single stat on a single email, click back out, do the same thing on another email.
So helpful.
Our team was spending hours and hours every week monitoring things for our clients. And we had to have a way to not work that hard, frankly, right? And also, it's hard to train people on what they should be looking for in some ways. And so because that's not an easy thing to pick up, what we did is we just color coded the data. So you can just tell by the color that there's something that needs your attention, right?
Yeah.
And it drills down in the different levels of data, because most of the time when you see data in a software, it gives you data. It says, here's your open rate. Yay. Was that my open rate for my account, for this campaign or workflow, for that particular email? Was it an open rate over the last 30 days, the last 7 days? I mean, what level? Was it an open rate for my domain? Like, not all of those matter.
Getting a green. I'm like, yeah, Krystin would be so proud.
It's green. Josh is just like, it's green. I don't care what the number is. Anyway. And it's important to look at that stuff, but not have to look at it incessantly. Like, I don't want you to be in there for hours just staring at data. We want it to just be a quick look.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
It's going well. It's not going well. Shoot, it's not going well. Let me dig in. It's 2 clicks more to dig in. Boom. And now I see exactly where the problem is. It's email number 3 in that series.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
So, that's the perfect setup for my next question, which is, it would seem as though you built this software for you and your team, if that makes sense. And it's like, yes, we get to benefit from that because you've, allowed it for, your clients and kind of things of that nature. But I think a lot of times when people build software, they're trying to build software like, oh, how do I sell it to the, free user, make it, you're like, I need it to work for me.
We're solving internal problems.
Right. And so like with that, is that the focus of it? Like, is that what it is for? And now we're rolling it out to the public. Will it always just be an internal thing that only your clients use? Like, explain to me more of like the concept of why it was built or how it was built.
Yeah, it was built to solve problems. It all started with, we had a client, this was years ago. We had a client who was, his email was going to spam, and we had done all the normal stuff and we couldn't figure out what was causing it. And I'm looking at this email and it was a long form copy. And I'm thinking to myself, there's something in here that's causing this problem, right? But with my eyeballs, how much time does it take to go through every single line of the copy and go, oh, that's probably what's causing it, or maybe these 2 or 3 things could be causing it. And so I developed the copy grader to solve that problem. And basically I ran this by a developer friend of mine, and I said, can you just build me a magic box that does this? And I said, if I provide you all of the data, because I've been on the back end of software before, so I knew what that was going to take. And I was like, if I give you all the answers to the questions that I know you're going to have, can you just build me a magic box? He's like, sure. So it shows up on my screen. It was an ugly gray screen with just a place for text, and some stupid little button. It looked really archaic, but it did the job.
It worked.
Right? There were 22 things in that email that were a problem.
Wow.
But I didn't see it with my eyes. Right. And I don't know that I would have at the time. And so that was not only helpful for me, but it was helpful for me to turn it towards the client and go, hey, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Right. Let's redo this a little bit. And that was what fixed the problem. And so then the developer friend of mine, he just decided one day he was going to surprise me. It was like 10 o'clock at night. He says, Krystin, I have something to show you. So I hop on a Zoom with him, and he shows me this thing, and it was beautiful. And it took me a second. I'm like, is that mine? Is that my magic box? He goes, yeah, I put a UI on it. He goes, you could, other people need this. Like you could sell it. And I went, whoa, I just needed a tool. It's kind of like when you develop a spreadsheet template or something with some calculations in it. You're like, oh, this is awesome.
Well, that's
for
what
our
we
team.
did way back in the day with Instagram. When I was doing Instagram stuff, we would do hashtag research, right?
Yeah.
And you have to go get 30 of them. And a buddy came to me one time and he's like, hey, I built this. It was like a 17-year-old kid, right?
Yeah.
He hit me up. No, not even my buddy. He was like, yeah, he just hit me up and he's like, hey, I built this. And I was like, what is it? He goes, check it out. And I went in and it was like, click. And it was like, did all the hashtag research that it would take me 6 hours to do this type of stuff. And he did it in like 30 seconds. And it was like a life-changing moment. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Can people buy this?
So yeah, they can buy the copy grader. Yeah. What? It's called, our software is called EmailRx. And if you just go to emailrx.app, okay. Then you'll find a landing page that shows some.
We'll link that down below. It's really awesome. I didn't know that's where you got it.
Yeah.
I just pay you money. I don't know. It just shows up my credit card. I'm like, I don't even know how. I told you to do it somehow, but yeah. So emailrx.app.
Yeah. .app. Okay. It's meant to be prescriptive. I mean, again, goes back to my nursing background. I just want to make sure that we're helping people. And the idea here is not to just give them information, but to guide them on what do I do with this, right? Like how do I interpret this information? How do I move forward from here? So it's meant to be prescriptive. So we have the copy grader, we have the email stats piece of it is right now it's connecting to High Level and Mailgun, and it pulls in all the stats and shows you all kinds of stuff. And then at this moment, we're also developing an integration with Beehive. So Beehive being, I think, probably one of the foremost newsletter softwares out there. And we have several clients who use Beehive for big and small lists. And so, I'm looking at Beehive and I'm like, wow, this is not my favorite way to look at data. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't see the things I need to. So how do I fix this problem? So we're just pulling all of that into our software. So, and we'll continue to do that. I've talked with ActiveCampaign about it on a couple of occasions. That was before the Google and Yahoo changes came along. So they've been kind of busy dealing with ramifications of those changes.
Imagine. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When I saw that coming out, I'm like, I'm so glad I do not run a company like that, because oh my gosh. But back to the future vision now, right? Yeah. Like you got risks, so you got the software.
So the risks that I'm taking now are, the rules have changed. So I always tell people that the email deliverability is basically a game. And if you know the players and the rules and how score is kept, then you have a shot at winning this game. You can be really good at it, right? And so players being like you and I, we're players in the game. We're the marketers trying to send the emails, right? Yeah. The recipients, they're a player in the game. They get to decide a whole lot of things. They can have stuff go directly to the inbox if they want to. They can build, folders to file things into so they don't miss it. They can also build out routes that, kick stuff out so they don't have to look at it, right? They can mark things as spam. Like they can do all kinds of stuff. And then there's the tools that we use, the software. So like the ActiveCampaign, the MailChimp, the Infusionsoft, ClickFunnels, sending emails, High Level, whatever it is. So all of those vendors are basically players in this game. And then there's the SMTPs on the back end. So like the Mailgun, the SendGrid, the Amazon SES, whatever it is that's on the back end that's doing the actual sending. Yeah. which a lot of people don't realize that's what's actually sending your email, right? And so those are the players, but none of those players operate off the same rule book, right? They all have different rules. Like the only rule I have is just put it in the inbox. Just like, that's it. Like mine's really simple. My rule book is one page, one line. The recipients have different rules for sure than the marketers and so forth. So, and none of those are published. It's not like there's a white paper out there that says, hi, I'm Google. Here's how you can get past all my spam filtering logic. Like that's just not there, right? Well, or would it? Because you also are a recipient. So having something like that out there in the big wide world might not be so nice. I don't know if you realize that, but about 86% of the world's email is spam.
Okay,
most of which we don't see.
I don't check email.
Yeah, but I mean, you're protected from it in some respects. Like we just don't see most of it.
I'm aware now that you said 85% or 86%. I'm like, dang.
Yeah,
so,
lot.
That's probably a good thing, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of nefarious stuff going on out there. And then there's how score is kept. Like we all keep score differently in this game. So knowing the players, the rules, and how score is kept is really important if we want to win the game. Two of the biggest players in the game just changed the rules about how score is kept. So Google and Yahoo got together and decided they were going to change all of this stuff. As of February 1st, they started taking corrective action on it as of April. And we have seen some ramifications of that in all kinds of areas. I have people coming to me all the time. I have somebody that came to me the other day and said, my open rates are like half what they used to be. And, we have to learn how to play this game is really what this is all about.
So how does that affect the next 6 to 12 months with you and what you're doing? Like, what does it look like for you specifically?
Well, when they change the rules on you, what do you do?
I assume pivot,
figure out how to win the game again, right? So like, they changed some rules on us about how to we have to keep our spam rates a lot lower than we used to. So they don't want, like Google doesn't want our spam rate to be higher than 0.1%. And they say never let it go higher than 0.3%. That's their word. They use the word never. I thought that was very interesting in their documentation. That's a hard number. I mean, when I first started doing this, I used to tell people, if they're not my client, I would say just keep your spam rates well under 1%. If they were a client, I would say keep your spam rates under 0.5%. And we didn't worry about it too terribly much because it just didn't have that big of an impact on things. And now we're seeing that Google has tightened the reins on that a little bit, and it is having an impact. And so we have to figure out how do we play within those new parameters, and also how do we take risks within those parameters? Because when somebody comes to me with a list and they say, I have 100,000 people, and then I say, okay, well, how many of them are active? Oh, 58,000 are active. But what do I do with the other 42,000? I don't want to lose those people, right? Well, a year ago, I would have like, just bring them on. We'll make it happen, right? And now you have to be a little bit more cautious in the way that you approach that. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to send to these other people that are not active. They're not engaging with you, say, in the last 90 days, because those are the same people that are going to bring my spam rates up. They're going to hurt my domain reputation, which means Daddy Google is going to look at me when I approach the door and go, yeah, nah.
It would seem like overall it's like there's a lot more rules and a lot more loopholes and things that you have to jump through. But it would seem like that for the people that actually know what they're doing and the people that actually understand the rules in the game, like you're talking about, like it would seem like the game is getting better though, right?
The game is getting better from my perspective. I don't know if it feels that way to everybody else. What I like about this game now is that they are turning the reins on it. Right. So if you're going to step out and be really good at what you're doing and show up for the people that you're intending to serve and playing within those rules, you're going to stand out. Right. Yeah. You're going to stand out. So now let's say that I'm online and I'm searching for a plumber near me. Right. And I've got 5 different websites pulled up and they're all trying to collect my information. Hopefully some of them might not be, but they're trying to collect my information and I'm going to start to get emails from them. I don't want to be like the other people. Like I want to send emails that mean something to the person who's looking for the plumber. I want to talk about the pain of what they're going through as opposed to here's my offer, like get on a phone call. Like there's so many other things we could do to talk to those people in the moment. And when you learn how to play the game within the new set of rules, who knows, maybe the other 4 plumbers are not even going to get into the inbox.
Yeah. Do you have, and maybe you don't, if you don't, that's fine. Do you have thoughts on or opinions on AI and technology and where it's going? And like, do you have any thoughts or like fears, concerns, or things that you're excited for or whatever? Not from like just like how it affect. like, oh, we can use AI tools, but I just mean like broad picture, for example. Like, for example, one of the things that I know that it's always so funny when the mainstream public finds out about something that marketers used a decade ago, right? You know what I'm saying? Like when the whole I don't want to say certain political terms because then we can't, for YouTube. But what was it called? There was a big investigation back in 2016 when the election was going on, and all that. What was that? Bridgewater water? I forget. Where they were basically like sharing data, and everyone was like, "What do you mean? Like, you mean to tell me that they're like tracking everything that we do online?" And I'm like, LOL, you mean since like ever, right? Like, what? Yeah. It was like shocking to people, right? Yeah. And it's like, I think mainstream, even some marketers are finding out right now, it's like there's data sharing pools where it's like someone can hit your website, they don't even have to opt in, and they can get your email, right? And it's like, how on earth do they do that? It's like, because there's big giant data sharing pools or whatever, right? Now you add in an AI complexity on top of that, and you add in, where Google and a lot of these companies, they're not being run by people anymore, right? They're being run by machines that are literally intelligent, that are making decisions that no one is overseeing, right? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think we could go all over the place with thoughts on that. I mean, if I'm talking personally or from a religious standpoint or whatever, there's always going to be some level of, I don't want to say fear, but cautious consideration, right? I have a 13-year-old son at home, and he would love to start playing with something like ChatGPT, and I have pulled it up a couple of times to help him think through what the teacher was asking him on some of his homework, but not allow him to use it himself, right? I just wanted him to think through, like, they're asking you to put this outline together. This is kind of how they want you to structure out the paper that you're writing. And he tried it on his own, and he's really struggling with coming up with some ideas. So I said, let's just see what Chat has for ideas. And then I took it away, because I just wanted him to be exposed to some new concepts, but not use that to like write his paper. So, we're always kind of thinking about that, because I don't want him, maybe it's a little bit of the, like when we were younger, the calculator was introduced and we weren't allowed to bring it in for tests because they wanted us to like do it all by hand on paper, right? Yeah. And now the calculator, I mean, I remember being in college where they were saying like the calculator is required and you have to have this calculator to get, come into this class. You're never going to have a calculator in your
pocket all the time. And I'm
right. So eventually maybe AI will be like that. It's like, you have to have AI as part of this. So you just can't even take this class or whatever. Yeah. But I just want to be cautious, and I want him to go through a process. I want him to struggle. I want him to have to figure things out. I want him to fail. God forbid, right? Like I want him to fail, and I want him to learn from those failures. So I also want him to understand that like AI is not the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's a whole crazy topic too.
It's not the truth.
Yeah.
And if you ask the same question of AI 10 times, you'll get 10 different responses. Yeah. So anyway, so there's that level of like, let's think about how we're going to incorporate this into our home.
Yeah.
And I want to do it with thought and care and consideration. And then when we think about it from an email perspective, I work with a client who uses ChatGPT a lot to write copy, and I want to throw up. Like I just, I do change things sometimes, and I make, I give input on some of the copy, and right now actually they're changing a lot of that right now. But, when you see the word maestro used over and over again, the same emoji techniques and all of the same stuff that just keeps coming up, it's like, wow, this is so not okay. Yeah. We don't want to write like that. We're talking to human beings, and AI is not a human being. So, but I have another client who is a direct competitor to like a 1-800-Flowers kind of a thing, online flower delivery. I can't say their name, but we started putting out a newsletter with them. And the person that's putting the copy together was struggling a little bit on like, how do I come up with this, that, and the other thing for the newsletter? And so I don't want to do it for them, but I want to expand their thinking. I want to expand their horizons a little bit. Like, what could we put into this newsletter? And so I just went into ChatGPT, which I probably could have done it in any number of tools, but I just happened to have that one open. And I gave a simple prompt, and it spit out some amazing stuff. And I said, I want you to start thinking bigger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of opened up their eyes and went, whoa, we could totally do that. Yeah. Now, I don't know what the next newsletter is going to look like. I haven't seen it, but I mean, I want them to start moving in the direction of thinking bigger.
Yeah. It's interesting, different people's approaches to AI. Because I'm generally overwhelmingly optimistic about the future. And while there is a portion of AI that is absolutely and completely terrifying, right? I mean, like completely terrifying. Like for most of me, I'm like, okay, I'm positive about this. I think this is a good thing, right? Or I think we can use this for good, right? And I like Elon Musk a lot, obviously, and his takes on it. But I think that AI is one of those things where it is going to it is going to change. It is going to change our world so much, so quickly. Like I don't think people realize how smart AI already is, right? Because of what they see. But also, I don't think people understand how much, particularly once like robots come out, like with Optimus and with what Elon's doing, like we're talking like in a matter of a year or something, like tens of millions of people.
Just picture what that's going to look like in Costco.
But you know what I mean? Like Elon's already saying you're going to be able to buy this for $20,000 and it can walk your dogs and go shopping for you and do the dishes and watch you literally like a babysit your kid, right? And it's like, right? And so I go, the approach that I take from this is I go from a personal perspective. I think that way more people need to be educated on AI. I think like I don't have a 13-year-old, so I'm sure this is going to, my approach to this is going to change. But I'm like, I want my kids to know as much about technology and how it works as humanly possible, because they need to know not only how to use it, but they need to understand how it works so that they know what is being done, right?
Yeah.
But then I think the part that does terrify me more than anything else is the fact that you have the Googles and you have the Facebooks and you even have the Twitters. I mean, like in the X's right everywhere. These are basically data centers, right? Yeah. They're massive, massive data centers. And the second AI, and I'm sure it's already there, right? Where it has been unleashed. And the second that the machines start making decisions, right? And however that machine is programmed to think about, call it morality, call it, what's good, bad, or whatever, is you talk about, domain scored reputations or whatever, right? Imagine you say something in an email or you say something and the machine goes, oh, that's deemed as a threat. And then all of a sudden it's like, let's just have a bunch of people go report this domain as, you know what I'm saying? And they can but nobody knows. Like nobody, It's not like someone at Google is actually sitting there going, oh, the machine just did it.
It's like Hunger Games for email.
Kind of, right? But you know what I'm saying though?
Yeah.
And like, I think from that perspective, I think that could pose significant challenges in the relatively near future to a lot of how we think about, I mean, so same thing for social media, right? It's not just email, right? Where it's just like, you could say something or do something and literally no human being with any intention, negative or positive, did nothing, right? And like the machine just was like, you're bad or you're good, right? You see this in social media all the time. You look at TikTok. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the Hawk Tuah girl, right? Like,
no,
what?
I have not seen that.
Right? Like what? Like it's like that wasn't. No person sat behind a desk and went, let's make her famous, right? It was an algorithm and a machine that's out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that like AI with everything that you're talking about with the deliverability and stuff here could pose a pretty interesting challenge in the future.
Yeah, it really could. It really could. Yeah. Already we're seeing changes in bots. Like we had a client who was running a webinar and it was a client's client. I'll say that. So we weren't technically watching what was happening with that person, but that person launched this thing and then went on vacation. Over the course of like 3 or 4 days, bots got a hold of the opt-in form for the webinar. And by day like 4 is when our client reached out and said, hey, there's something happening here. Can you take a look at it? Over 1 million people had registered for the webinar. Now, I mean, I would love to have 1 million people interested in a webinar. Let's be honest, like that'd be really cool and also really scary because how are we going to support that? But anyway, I don't think Zoom is, ready for that kind of an audience, but it was bot traffic. And in the middle of it, somebody on their team decided to turn on an email validation toggle to thinking, oh, these are fake email addresses. So I'm going to just catch them before we send out the emails, right? But they weren't fake email addresses. So they ran up a huge bill for email validation before they turned it back off. Yeah. And that's how I found out about it because my client was like, hey, what is this? What is all of this billing?
The bots were using real emails.
They were using real email addresses. And so they weren't failing validation. Therefore, they were getting the emails. So they sent like over 1 million emails out to people who had registered, ruined the domain and the whole 9 yards, right? So like, this is more of a problem now than it has been in the past. Not that we haven't had those issues, but it's more of a problem now. And so, the tools that we're using and the strategies that we're using, we're just going to have to we just have to level up. Like, they're a little ahead of us maybe right now, and we're going to bring it up this far, and then they're going to have to work a little harder. And I don't know what that's going to look like in the next 1 year, 5 years. I heard a statistic, I think it was yesterday, somebody said something about 49% traffic is bots, something like that. Yeah. It boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's ever been a time to own assets, so that way if everything goes, at least it'll make money for me, right? I never really understood the asset thing for a long time. I was just like, let's make money, right? And then you go out into the world and you're like, the entire world is madness and chaos, and it's all going to blow up and fall apart at any given time, right? It's like this whole entire thing is a house of cards. But Krystin, thank you. Seriously, this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom. Thank you for coming on. Where can people find out more about you?
Honestly, just go to email2inbox.com. Email to inbox. Yeah, so it's like email the number to inbox.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where everything is.
Well, I mean, you'll find a contact form on there. And if you want to talk more, I'm a pretty laid back person, Josh. I don't do advertising. I don't have like a marketing team or an effort. I don't run ads or anything like that. All of our traffic's organic, and I'm a real person. Yeah. So when people reach out to me, I really actually talk back to them. Yeah.
Who would have thought? Revolutionary concept.
I care about people. So when they say, hey, I'm having this email problem, I'd really like to have you take a look at this. Great. Let's take a look at it. Now, my calendar might be a little bit full at certain times. But if you need some help, then let's talk.
Cool. We will link that down below. To wrap it up here, I want to do some rapid fire questions. We always wrap it up with a couple fun questions just to kind of, they're not serious.
I didn't know there's going to be a test.
Yeah, it's not a test. There's one kind of profound question at the end that'll make you think a little bit, but we're just going to do rapid fire. You ready?
Okay.
All right. First, for you, I'm going to throw in a different one, which is, what's the number one email tip that you have for people, like just across the board?
Oh my gosh, there's so many that go through my head. What's the number one email tip? I think just, remembering that there's a real person on the other side of that email. You're not talking to a list, you're talking to a person. Yeah. And I think when you change your perspective on that, it changes the way that you write your copy. It changes the way that the copy is received. And it changes, frankly, the results.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That's good. What's one bucket list item you've yet to do in your life?
My husband and I had this grand plan that we were going to go visit every NFL stadium.
Do you watch football? Oh, you're really big into football. That's right.
I don't play golf. Fan. Okay. But I love football, and we haven't been into it as much over the last probably COVID years, but I love football, and I've been to 3 stadiums now. We went to Seattle, Jacksonville. We've been to the home of the cheese, Green Bay. Right, nice. That was an amazing experience. Yeah. In fact, if I never go to another football stadium, I only get to pick one. I will go back to Green Bay every single time. That's how good of an experience that was.
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Okay.
Yeah, fun.
This year, you should come out. We'll go to one in Denver.
Let's do it.
We've gone to a couple of them out there, and
I saw a blue horse out there somewhere. It was like, oh, we're in Denver,
right by the airport. Yeah. But Denver's a sports city for sure, and the football team sucks right now. But the basketball team, I think the basketball team and the hockey team won it all at the same year last year, and then I forget that, but big sports team. So yeah, next time you're out here, we'll go. Who's one person you want to meet before you die?
Wow. That is a hard one. I don't know that I have a person that I want to meet before I die. Like, you know what? I'm not into titles or accolades or like, oh, someone is famous or whatever. I can't even think of a person that would, I'm going to die happy. I know where I'm going. You know what I mean? So I can't, honestly, I can't think of anybody. Like if I tried to pick somebody, it wouldn't be any different than someone else I would pick. So no, I don't really have. Isn't that weird? Maybe that's weird.
Yeah. That question right there though, is like we get a variety of answers, but is the question that I asked that the most people answer the same. And the number one is Elon Musk. Yeah. Yeah. Like quite a few people I ask. It's amazing how, that's mine for sure. Right.
I mean, it'd be cool, but honestly, like I don't even know what I would say. And I'm pretty sure that his level of conversation would be in a completely different space for me.
Don't you the dude is putting chips in people's brains and sending people the rocket, taking us to space, building electric cars, taking on all the world governments, single-handedly saving free speech all at the same time. And he's still shit posted on Twitter and dunking on other billionaires. Like,
I mean, that's all entertaining for me and very interesting, but I don't know that being in a room with him would change my life. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Oh. All right.
Does he need help with email? Do you need help with email?
Yeah. Maybe Tesla does. Who knows? What's one book you think every entrepreneur should read?
Well, I'm the Bible. I'm sorry, but like that's I'm a believer, and if we don't have that as our foundation, then everything kind of falls apart. So, I just have to go back to that. There's so many books. My bookshelf is full of books. Yep. I love the anything from Cialdini. I love the Never Split the Difference. Voss. Yeah. There's so many books out there that I love, but if we don't have a solid foundation, kind of like with email, if we don't have a solid foundation, then all of this is really for nothing. So. Yep.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah, Cialdini's really good. Persuasion is one of my favorite books of all time. Like completely changed my entire. That's the whole premise that I have. The issue I have with cold email. I mean, with running Facebook ads directly. I was like, why on earth would the first interaction you have with someone want to be to try to sell them something, right? Like, there's got to be a pre. But all right, last question. Fast forward to the end of your life, and you're on your deathbed, and every single person you've been called to impact and touch and change their life of, they forget everything that you've ever told them. But you get to leave them with one final message or word of truth that they believe 100% at face value and live out. What's that message?
I'm picturing my family all around me and friends, and honestly, I think that there's more to life than what we're experiencing here. I think that you can bang your head against the wall, you can be frustrated, you can be mad at circumstances or things that people have done to you or at you or whatever. But the reality is none of that really matters. You have to wake up every day. You have to find something that you're passionate about, and you have to live to serve. Like, you have to go out there and think of, like, how can I help someone or something in this moment? Like, if we're all thinking about ourselves, and that we're trying to serve ourselves, that's only going to get you so far. But I think if you look for ways to help other people, then you're going to go a lot further in life.
Love that. Krystin, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun.
This was fun. All right, everybody, go subscribe, go to her email to inbox.com and emailrx.app. Look at me. I'm remembering these things. Subscribe to the channel if you liked it. Krystin, thank you.